So here's the beginning in Luke 15 of three parables Jesus tells. And they all really have a similar point. And so when Jesus tells you three parables in a row with similar points, we ought to really pay attention.
Yeah.
And it's important, I think, to know before we actually get to the parable itself, is kind of like, let's look at the context, the setting. So, and I'm going to read it for us in the Amplified to give us another little look on it. And the Amplified says, I'm just going to read the first few verses. Now the tax collectors and notorious and especially wicked sinners were all coming near to Jesus to listen to him. And the Pharisees and the scribes kept muttering and indignantly complaining, saying, "This man accepts and receives and welcomes preeminently wicked sinners and eats with them." So he told those guys this parable. So it's so interesting to me, that response. It's like these are the most religious people in the world at that time, and they don't like the fact that Jesus is reaching out to lost people.
Yeah, I think that these first two verses in Luke 15 are probably some of the most important verses in this entire chapter, because what Jesus is doing here is he is rebuking the Pharisees. Because at this time, the Pharisees really divided people into two categories of
Right.
people.
Oh, wow, you're so right, John.
They divided them into the righteous and the unclean.
Yeah.
And the Pharisees would not associate with the unclean. In fact, some would not even teach them the Bible because they just thought that they were gone, they were lost.
Right.
And so the fact that Jesus was willing to teach people who were, in the Pharisees' eyes, sinners, and according to the passage, are sinners, was really just a stinging rebuke to the Pharisees.
That is certainly, I love your take on it. I'd have a slightly different take. I would say it was gracious of Jesus to be willing to share parables with these Pharisees, even though they hated him, even though they would eventually crucify him. He's willing to reach out to them and say, guys, listen, let me explain to you in a parabolic form what I'm doing here. Because if you could get what I'm doing, then you wouldn't be hating what I'm doing, and you might even get saved yourself.
Yeah.
So he's trying to say to them, you've got this all wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And don't, sometimes we get it wrong today.
Sure.
It's like, I would love, I've said this before, but my listener, whatever church you're going to, if you're going to a church, I would love it if that church next Sunday was filled with notorious and preeminently wicked sinners who came to hear the message of Jesus. That's what we're about.
Right.
Is to try and reach the lost. And these guys, these religious people, they're saying like, we belong to God's club, and it's a very exclusive club, and the rest of you guys can't, and you're not in the club. But Jesus came to seek and save that which was lost. Jesus was a friend of publicans and sinners. I mean, this is the message of Christ. It's not the goal of Christianity is not that we dress up in a nice clothes and go to church on Sunday, although going to church is good. But the goal of Christianity is to change the world and to help people who are going to make hell their home to make heaven their home. So that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to say, look, I'm trying to reach people that are going to bust hell wide open and help them change their lives and make heaven their home. Wow.